暗いわよ、サトシ。ま、おにぎり食べて元気出せば。ピカピカ。
丸いのは梅干し、三角のは昆布だぞ。いい昆布が手に入ったからな。
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where this week I am just so embarrassed to find out that onigiri are not jelly-filled donuts, but a rice ball, traditionally stuffed with pickled plums, kelp, or a whole host of other ingredients. So let's start with the kelp, which we're going to let reconstitute in water for 15 minutes until it's soft and flexible, just like this, and then we're going to pat it dry and slice it into thin 2 to 3 inch long ribbons. Now be aware this stuff is really sticky once you cut it. Just got to get it off the finger there, come on. Once you manage to get yourself unstuck, oh my god, get it off me. Continue slicing your kombu until it is all sliced up into slices, like this, which we're then going to throw into a saute pan along with a half a cup of water, 1 tablespoon of rice wine vinegar, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, and 1 tablespoon each of mirin and sake. I know this seems like a lot of flavors for a little bit of kelp, but onigiri fillings are very bold because they're just mostly rice. So now we're bringing this over to the stovetop and over medium heat, bringing to a simmer and cooking for about 10 minutes. We're also going to add a big tablespoon of sugar. This, I imagine, is to help combat all that salt and acidity. And so after about 7 to 10 minutes, you will find that most of the liquid evaporates and you're left with a nice thick sauce into which we are going to generously sprinkle some sesame seeds, setting aside and covering until ready to use. Our sour pickled Japanese plums, or umeboshi, are much easier to prepare in that they just need to be pitted. To get the pit out, just give your plums a little squeeze. Then you can mash these up with a fork. I'm just going to give them a little chop, and then it's time to get our rice ready. We are making sushi rice, so that means we have to thoroughly wash it. When I say thoroughly, I mean thoroughly. Into a bowl it goes, along with about a cup of water, and then we're going to slosh it around, trying to rinse off as much of the starch as possible. You'll notice that the first 3 or 4 washes, your water's going to look kind of like skim milk, and we want to keep going until it's almost running clear. Then into a rice cooker, or in this case a pressure cooker, it goes, along with 1 1/2 times its volume in water. So to this 1 cup of rice, how many cups of water am I adding? That's right, 1 1/2. Then I'm cooking the rice on high pressure for 7 minutes before letting it rest for 5, and then releasing the pressure using the valve and a protective glove of some sort, and then spreading the rice out onto a sheet pan so it can cool slightly. While it's still hot though, I want to drizzle it with a mixture of 2 tablespoons rice wine vinegar to 1 tablespoon of sugar to 1 teaspoon of salt. Give it a little mix without mashing it too much. We want the rice to stay nice and fluffy, we don't want it to clump together. Get our fillings at the ready, and then it is time to start forming our onigiri, which you gotta do with wet hands, otherwise the rice is going to stick to you like glue. I'm going to start by making a little disc of rice in my hand, dropping in a few pieces of our filling, and then topping with another disc of rice. Brock specified that the rice balls containing plums were round, so I'm going to go ahead and pat this into a sort of kind of burger patty shape. There we go. And then on to the slightly more challenging task of forming triangular onigiri. It all starts the same way, sandwiching the filling between 2 flat hunks of rice, shutting the edges closed, but this time instead of patting into a patty, we're going to coax it into a cone by holding it flat with one hand and then pressing down with a rounded hand on top. And then these guys get a strip of seaweed on the bottom to act as a sort of handle and protect your hands against the sticky rice. So here they are, my first attempt at making onigiri stuffed with umeboshi and kombu. The pickled plums were definitely my favorite. They almost taste like sour cherries, and they work surprisingly well with the ocean-like flavor of the seaweed. The kelp-filled ones, not so much. The flavor's great, but the texture is really off-putting to me. It's very chewy and leathery. That is, however, purely a personal opinion and just something I'm not yet accustomed to. The umeboshi, however, were entered into the Clean Plate Club. The one thing I was really not happy with, though, was the shape of my onigiri. They looked pretty rough and sloppy, and often Japanese cuisine can be incredibly beautiful and precise, so I wanted to try to do a better job. Attempt number 2 had better shapes, but I cut the seaweed too big, so they looked a little out of proportion. Attempt number 3 had underwashed rice, so that it came out kind of slimy. Attempt number 4 was preceded by a couple jazz cigarettes and kind of went off the rails a little bit. I call him Snowmanigiri, which I recognize is not clever, but attempt number 5 is where I finally hit my stride. Warm rice, wet hands, and properly cut seaweed yielded perfect onigiri. Proof that with enough practice, you can and will do anything. It's raining. It's raining here in Binge Studios, and this happens all the time. Getting all wet. I mean, you know what I should do though? Is I should take this frying pan and turn it into a drying pan. I'm still getting wet. This doesn't work. This is ineffective.